The opening chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu Bible, if you will, illustrates a conversation that takes place on the back of a war chariot just prior to the great battle of Kurukshetra between Prince Arjuna, an Aryan prince, and his dark-skinned, low-caste charioteer, Krishna, who incidentally actually is God. And it's an interesting image in that it illustrates quite nicely the advantage that the original Aryans had, the Indo-Europeans had, over the peoples that they conquered when they swept out of their ancient homeland, which was probably somewhere in southern Russia, in a place with a particularly harsh climate, flat and grassy land, steppe. And I can tell you, as I live on the steppe, that it is a very harsh environment, and I can only imagine what it would be like to live as a nomad in that existence. It resulted in, of course, a warrior race of people. Most nomads actually are warriors. They consider anyone who's not related to them as potential enemies. It just tended to breed a very hard race of people. These people invaded what is now India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and imposed themselves on the culture of the darker-skinned Dravidian people and created India's caste system and, of course, Hinduism, with the upper caste people being fair-skinned, and even to this day, you'll see, generally speaking, the lower caste are darker-skinned. The same process of migration saw the Indo-Europeans conquer Europe. They didn't seem to actually impose themselves on top of an existent civilization, because the Proto-Europeans, or the original Aboriginal Europeans, didn't seem to be as settled or as advanced as the Indians were, the Dravidians. They seemed to actually take over completely. But the image of the chariot is still there. The spoked chariot pulled by two horses is in Irish mythology with Cuchulainn, Norse mythology with Thor, in Greek and Roman mythology with Zeus / Jupiter, and Poseidon / Neptune riding chariots. Even when a Roman conqueror came back to the city and was awarded a triumphal parade through the streets of Rome to be cheered by everybody, he rode a chariot. That was the symbol of conquest and authority. Going back to the age when the military technology of an otherwise primitive people, the Indo-Europeans, was such that it enabled them to conquer gigantic masses of territory. Now, they did split off into these two groups. I would say, generally speaking, there's the Eastern group and the Western group. The Eastern group were the Persians, the Afghans, the Kurds, and above all, the Indians and Pakistanis nowadays. And these people tended to, if you ask me, become more settled, even though they did have the warrior traditions, the upper caste warrior Hindus and eventually Muslims who spoke Indo-European languages maintained that warrior tradition, but they didn't seem to cleave to it quite as powerfully as, say, the Europeans did. The European Indo-Europeans went in and they kept up this constant struggle, generally with each other, constant warfare, constant competition, constant brutal genocidal wars against each other. And I think that the original climate that the Indo-Europeans came out of explains how they were able to impose themselves onto everyone else, but it doesn't explain why the European branch in particular remained a lot more warlike than their Eastern cousins. I suppose that's the subject of my next video, but it's to my mind at least the explanation for at least the original leg up, even if it's 3.5 millennia ago, that the Indo-Europeans had against other civilizations that were in many ways superior to their own. Thank you.